The Leominster City Council meeting is funded in part by DeCarolis Insurance Agency at www.decarolisinsuranceagency.com and by Avidia Bank at www.avidiabank.com.
Because the winner used to play right.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Susan Shalfo-Zephyr. I am the chair of the Legal Affairs Committee. We have a public hearing this evening on petition 9-26. Councilor Robert Tossi, the Ward 1 councilor, is also on the committee, as is Pauline Cormier, Ward 2 councilor. So this is on petition 9-26. Susan Shalfo-Zephyr, Brandon Robbins, councilors at large, Ward 1 councilor Robert M. Tossi, and 10 registered voters. Request to amend the zoning ordinance pertaining to MU2 zoning. We've had the public hearing. We opened it in, I think, September, and we continued it to this evening. So before we begin, I do have several different documents that I will read, letters and emails and things of that nature. I thought I'd read them into the public record to start. The first one is dated November 24th. It was delivered, I guess, today at about 3:30 from the Scotty Development to the Leominster City Council. Dear President Bodanza and councilors, I write in strong opposition to the proposed zoning amendments to the MU2 district. As you are aware, I am the developer of the Orchard Hill Park Shopping Center and have owned land in the MU2 district around the shopping center for over 20 years. I write to provide background on the MU2 district, my efforts to develop this land, and why the proposed zoning amendments should be rejected by the council. Additional details on the prior zoning amendment to the MU2 district, include the planning and public process, are provided in Planning Director Wood's memorandum to the Planning Board dated October 9th, 2025. Unlike the prior amendments to the MU2 district, which were initiated and recommended by the Planning Board to the City Council 7-0, the currently proposed zoning amendments were not recommended for approval by the Planning Board vote on November 3rd, 2025. The MU2 district was designated to be the most densely zoned land in the city due to its proximity to Routes 2 and I-190. However, when I first proposed the Orchard Hill Park development, the land had laid fallow for many years after the Fitzgerald Apple Orchard had closed and numerous failed development attempts by others. There was no sewer, no water, drainage, etc. The property required millions of dollars in infrastructure to make it pad ready. As part of these efforts, I worked with the city and state to completely redesign and reconstruct the Route 2 Harvard Street interchange, widened Harvard Street to accommodate future development of the land, and implemented numerous off-site traffic mitigation measures. I also purchased the land and constructed the road between Orchard Hill Park Drive and Pioneer Drive, both of which were dead-end roads at the time. This road construction allowed for an alternate route for cars and, more importantly, eliminated the need for trucks exiting Route 2 to have to drive up Harvard Street to Prospect Street to get to Pioneer Industrial Park. All of these actions were taken in anticipation of both the shopping center and the future development of my remaining land. Subsequent to the Orchard Hill Park Shopping Center construction, the MU2 zoning district was then updated in 2012 to allow for additional uses, such as allowing multifamily housing as a by right use. However, since the shopping center was constructed over 20 years ago, no further development has occurred to this land. The site remained challenged primarily due to construction costs, its topography, and the then existing zoning requirements. In 2024-2025, the city undertook a planning process to look at potential zoning changes to a variety of zoning districts, including the MU2 district, to encourage housing creation. These efforts led to the recent zoning amendments to the MU2 district in 2025 to acknowledge the prior construction of the shopping center and to make other changes to encourage housing creation. For example, the 2012 ordinance required non-residential uses on the first floor of a multifamily building, which obviously makes no sense. It's not economical to build and is not leasable. These 2025 amendments were approved by the council 8-1 at the public hearing on January 13th, 2025. The recent zoning changes finally make the land economically feasible to develop for much-needed residential housing. The planning and zoning process of 2024 and 2025 was open and began at the Housing Committee. Recommendations from the Housing Committee were made to the Planning Board. The Planning Board then modified the committee's recommendations and submitted the zoning amendment petition to the City Council. Following submittal, the Planning Board held a public hearing and unanimously recommended approval of the zoning amendments to the City Council. City Council approved the 2025 zoning amendments to the MU2 district by an 8-1 vote only a few months ago. In contrast to the MU2 district amendments, the council voted down 2 proposed Housing Committee recommended changes to the Residence B and C zoning districts. The MU2 district allows for reasonable but capped multifamily development, which is appropriate, as this district is one in which development has always been encouraged. In contrast, the council recently rezoned land on 435 Lancaster Street from MU1 to Business B and changed the zone to allow for residential uses with no density requirements. This other project was recently approved for 276 housing units on a little more than 6 acres, 40-plus units per acre. The proposed amendments would hastily undo the careful planning and zoning efforts of the Housing Committee, Planning Board, and this council earlier in 2025. The proposed amendments would prohibit housing by reintroducing the requirement that multifamily buildings must have non-residential uses on the ground floor. This would make multifamily projects uneconomic. Significant time, effort, and money has gone into making this land ready for development. Changing recently adopted zoning so suddenly and drastically sends the wrong message to those that may be interested in investing in Leominster. I urge the council to vote no on these proposed amendments. Sincerely, Greg Lascai. Next is a letter also received today at 4:20 p.m. from Brian Falk at Myrick Law. Leominster City Council proposed amendment to MU2 zoning district. Dear councilors, on behalf of my client Wood Partners and its affiliate WP East Acquisitions LLC, I write in opposition to the proposed amendment to the multi-use District 2 provisions of the Leominster zoning ordinance under consideration by the City Council. We identified several procedural and substantive defects associated with this zoning amendment and raised our concerns with the city's legal counsel. The most significant defect, however, is the message this zoning amendment would send to anyone looking to invest in the city. The city amended the MU2 district requirements in January of this year after a careful and professional planning process, as detailed in the October 9th memo from the city's Office of Planning and Development. Relying in good faith on the new requirements of the MU2 district, Wood Partners commenced a lengthy and expensive process with the city to review its proposed multifamily community at 86 Orchard Hill Park Drive. This is a project that aligns closely with local and state priorities for new quality housing. This project's review process started in February with the city's technical review board and has proceeded over the following 9 months with city departments, the Conservation Commission, and the Planning Board. Wood Partners has worked diligently to address every concern about the project raised by city officials and peer reviewers. The city's rigorous process led to several changes in the project, such as decreasing the total number of units, increasing buffer areas and fencing to screen the project, and additional stormwater management controls. Wood Partners also agreed to a significant mitigation payment to help address sidewalks in the vicinity of the project. Wood Partners has assumed throughout this process that the city encouraged its investment of time and money through the council's vote this year to allow multifamily project by right. As often happens with multifamily projects, neighbors voiced their opposition, not just to discrete elements of the project, but to multifamily housing in general. That is not uncommon. What is uncommon and disconcerting is how this proposed zoning amendment emerged as a reactionary measure to the project. Zoning amendments targeting and reacting to specific projects are inconsistent with sound planning principles. If enacted, this amendment would have a harming effect on investment in Leominster more broadly beyond this project, this site, and this zoning district. The basic assumption that a project proponent can rely on the city honoring its zoning ordinance is an essential precondition to economic development. Community input is a critical component of land use permitting, but if zoning can change whenever there is a perceived shift in public sentiment, it becomes difficult to trust the city as an economic development partner. This amendment would send a poor message about the city. If Leominster cares about economic development, encouraging investment and new housing, it does not want to be known as the city that changes the rules the second it hears of any opposition to a project. We urge the council to reject this proposed zoning amendment. Next. This is from the Mayor's Office dated November 13th, 2025, Leominster City Council, Council Petition 926. Dear members of the Leominster City Council, I understand that the City Council has scheduled the next hearing on the above matter for November 24th, 2025. Both Elizabeth Wood and I are unable to attend this meeting due to previous commitments. We would very much like to participate in the hearing and look forward to working with you on, to agree on a date that works for all. Thank you. Sincerely, Dean Mazzarella, Mayor. Next letter from the Mayor's Office dated November 20th, 2025, Leominster City Council, Council Petition 9-26. Dear members of the Leominster City Council, unfortunately, we were unable to work out a meeting date in the coming weeks that worked for everyone regarding the above matter. I would encourage the council to proceed with voting on the matter. Thank you. Sincerely, Dean Mazzarella, Mayor. November 14th, 2025. This is from the Office of the Planning Board to the City Council regarding City Council Petition 9-26. City Council, I would like to request a continuance from the 11/24/2025 City Council meeting for Petition 9-26. I received an invitation to the hearing on this matter. However, I would like for my legal counsel to be present at this meeting to represent me to ensure that the subject matter presented pertains to the subject and that I am present to defend my professional competence, answering any questions you may have. My legal counsel is unavailable on 11/24/25. My attorney is available at the next scheduled meeting on December 8th. Thank you for your consideration. And this is from the Office of the Planning Board dated November 5th, 2025, regarding City Council Petition 9-26. Dear City Clerk, on 11/3/2025, the Planning Board voted 4-3 to not recommend City Council Petition 9-26 to the City Council. The board voted as follows. Pat Perla, yes, to not recommend. Sal Ciccone, no. Carol Vittorioso, no. Tom Kerrigan, yes. Jason Perret, no. Dean Valier, yes. John Souza, yes. If you have any questions or need any more information, please don't hesitate to reach out. Regards, Elizabeth Wood, on behalf of the Planning Board. So that's what I have for recently submitted letters and emails and things relative to this petition. So I will, I guess I will go to members of my committee to see if anybody has any questions or if anyone. Right now, Elizabeth Wood she will be here on the 8th. Yes, she's been confirmed. Yes. So I do have her report. I'm not going to read it into the record because I'll read it the night that she's here with us. So I'll go to my committee to see if anybody has any questions before I open it up to the public. Councilor Pauline Cormier, are you all set?
I'm all set.
Okay. Councilor Tossi?
All set.
Okay. Any other city councilors have any questions on petition 9-26? No? Okay, then I'll open it up to the public. So at this point, anybody who would like to weigh in on petition 9-26, again, which is the request to amend the zoning ordinance pertaining to MU2 zoning, you can come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, Haley Brady, 200 Harvard Street. I thought it was really interesting with Merrick's letter that this procedure started way back in February with the site plans and everything. The mayor signed this zoning into like officialness on February 14th. So this was already in the works before this zoning got amended. Anyways, I did prepare something though. Been coming to a lot of these meetings over the past few months, more than I really have ever wanted to. I've heard a lot of things from a lot of people. Not one single resident neighbor has gotten up here and said, we don't want housing, do not build housing. What I have heard is people pleading for more than 5-foot buffers between their properties and a giant build like this. I've heard neighbors asking please don't let them direct stormwater discharge directly into my backyard. I've heard a lot of, can we have basic safety allowances, like sidewalks, so I don't have to worry about my kids walking to the bus stop on an already dangerous road. All of those things were a fight and a struggle. No one here wants to stop housing. We just want the basic allowances that every other homeowner in this city is afforded. The project at Orchard Hills, this is the first. With the MBTA zoning, with the ADUs, the past year, our city, we're going through huge transformation changes. Like, this is the first example we have of that. But Ward 2 residents, especially on Funston, Monarch, Moore, State Street, I'm sure they'll be calling their counselor to complain about these things. The next will be the overlays in, is it Ward 3? For the same exact problems. Counselor Ardinger, I heard your, dissatisfaction with the ADU mandate and how the state is forcing us to do these things that we necessarily don't want, but we have to do. I'm sure your constituents might call you and say, hey, my neighbor's putting a mini mobile home park. And you'll have to tell them the same thing that Counselor Tossi told us. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do. It's by right. Those changes are mandated by the state. MU2 is not. We have to suck up and do a lot of things we don't want to do over the next year, 2 years, 5 years. This isn't one of them. This won't change the project at Orchard Hills. That's already going through. This will not touch that. It might not even touch the rest of the 70 or so acres because of the subdivision plans he put in. All this does is give the residents a little bit of hope, a tiny bit of hope that they're not going to have to be back here next month dealing with the same thing. They don't have to show up to 3 meetings a week with different boards to beg for more than a 5-foot buffer between a place they've called home for 80 years and a giant build-out. It gives the city some negotiating power with a special permit. We just had to put a meals tax on to pay for the Fallbrook School. That's a necessary evil. We need those things. But when you give away your special permits, somebody can propose a giant build and this city has no negotiating power. You can't require them to put sidewalks in. You can't require them to throw money towards the school. You can't force them to do anything. You have to allow it. It lessens environmental, standards. It takes away not only the residents' voice, it takes away the city's voice. Planning boards had an issue, they can't do anything about it. Conservation sees issues, they can't do anything about it. Screw everything else in that zoning. I can only speak for myself, but what most people want, give us our buffers and our special permits back. So at least we have a little bit of peace of mind that the next build isn't going to be completely damaging to our properties. Things we've sunk our life savings into, things that people have built generations on. Give us some kind of peace of mind. We don't want to stop housing. We don't want to stop growth. We just want the same protections that every other homeowner in this city has. Thank you.
Good evening. Liz Macarola, 75 Harvard Street. Like Ms. Brady, I was also reacting a little bit to the lawyer's letters, the first of which noted there was a careful professional planning process that resulted in the MU2 zoning change, and the second is qualifying our petition to revert the zoning back as a reactionary measure. The careful and professional planning process did not involve any residents of the city in that housing committee. What it did involve were the landowner and developers. There is a document in the city archives from Mr. Lascotti which marked up the then current zoning with his handwritten changes for what he wanted to see. And then those changes got written into the independent consultant report recommending exactly the changes that the landowner requested. When you held your city council meeting in January to discuss the impact of the proposed changes, I know there were a lot of questions about what those impacts would mean in real terms. And I know that the planning director, Ms. Wood, was present but could not answer those questions. That's not a careful professional planning process. That's something that got pushed through very quickly without even enough due diligence to understand the numbers behind those handwritten zoning changes that got adopted. I was not aware of what was going on at the time, as were, I think, most people behind me in this room, because even though the zoning was going to change right next to these, the abutters, it was not necessary, apparently, to notify any of the abutters of the impending zoning changes. So they did not know to come and speak out on their own behalf. They did not have that opportunity for input. And I think that's critical. I don't see how you can review this process as careful and thorough and professional without notifying the people who are most impacted by it. And those are the city's residents, city residents who've been here for decades and had no idea of the enormity of the impact of that zoning change, because they didn't even know the zoning was proposed to change, because no one thought to tell them. Now, eventually it came out that the zoning had changed, and it came out because eventually people started to understand that there was a proposed development. Now, I say eventually because one of the changes of the MU2 zoning was that it removed the requirement to notify abutters of development next door to them. So this 86 Orchard Hill Park Drive development proposed by WP East was going forward without any residents living right next door knowing about it. They were not required to be notified because of this zoning change that we are asking to be rescinded. That is one of the biggest problems with the zoning as it changed. The qualification of this petition to revert the zoning back is a reactionary measure, which is a quote from the lawyer for WP East in his letter, is frankly insulting, because it could only have been reactionary since no one was involved in the process to begin with. So yes, we take issue with what happened, and yes, we are using our voice in our democratic city and this democratic country to speak out, and that is not reactionary. And to qualify it as such is to misunderstand this whole process and why we're all here before you tonight, because we care as citizens about the place that we call home, and we are here to voice those concerns to you, and that is by right for us. There's one of the few rights that we have as citizens going up against this kind of zoning change. We can speak up, and it is very disingenuous for a lawyer to tell us that we should just not speak about it, that we somehow had the opportunity if we had somehow known that this was going on before. So the zoning change that we are asking to have reverted back, it greatly increased the density. We all have heard this, from 12 units and change per acre to over 21 units per acre, and that's an enormous change. 12 units per acre is already a lot. 21 is excessive. But it also took away many of the tools of the planning board to address concerns with large-scale development. The first of these is the buffer, which went from a minimum of 50 feet to a maximum of 50 feet. The zoning changed to create a maximum buffer. That's pretty much unheard of, but now the maximum is what used to be the minimum. The abutters notice, as I've mentioned, went away. There is now no requirement to notify an abutter of a project of density of over 21 units per acre right next door to them, and they don't need to be told about it. It removed the special permit process for the planning board, which is a great tool for the planning board. It doesn't say that they can't build. It doesn't take away the ability of developers to develop and create great projects for our city. What the special permit process does is it lays out all of the impacts associated with that development so that as a city, as a planning board, they can make informed choices about what is best for our city. A development of the size and scale that could go upwards of 21 units per acre, even if it was 12 units per acre, say, when we did have the special permit process, a development of that size places significant impact on the city's services.
Just for the sake of clarity, there was no special permit requirement for the minimum density, which was 12 and a half units per acre, in the original zoning.
The original zoning, my understanding was it did have a special permit.
It did, for more than 12 and a half units per acre.
Right, yes.
But 12 and a half units per acre was by right.
Yes, correct. But the special permit was there in excess of that. And now there's no special permit process at all.
Correct.
And so my point with that, and thank you for that clarification, because that is important. My point with it is that a development of that scale requires significant city services. And there's significant cost associated with those services, whether it's public safety, transportation, schooling, hospitals, medical care. There's so many different city services impacted by large-scale development. And if we are not looking at those costs and just allowing these developments to go forward by right, we are putting the city at risk and its taxpayers at risk of footing bills and providing services that we are not in a position to provide. And the special permit process is a tool for us to look very carefully and critically at the impact of larger scale development and understand what we might be getting into as a city. Perhaps work with the developer on ways to mitigate those added costs with ways that are thoughtful and strategic for the planning of our city. Because a development of this size and scale in one ward puts a lot of pressure on one small area of our city. And if we are not fully understanding the impact of that, then we're going to have some problems. This is also an area that is very close to both Lancaster and Lunenburg, and it's going to put pressure on those communities as well. And I worry and I wonder about the communication with those cities and the impact it will have on them, because the transportation alone is a very large item. And if there is no coordination, then we are asking them to take on things that we ourselves may not even be able to be in a position to really, accept and undertake. So the transparency piece, I just want to take a minute and hammer it home, because it's really important that these kinds of large-scale changes to our city are done in a way that every resident can understand how it happened and that it makes sense, whether we agree with it or not. But what happened here was not transparent. We did not end up at this zoning change with everyone being on board with the process. And the difficulty with that is that, many of us here just feel like this got shoved down our throats, that we are the only area in the city that is asked to take this on, and that we were not involved in that process. And I hear a lot from the city's administration about how, we should have got involved early on. And, perhaps he's right. I wish I'd known about it early on. I wish I'd known about the housing committee. I would have loved to have been a part of that. I think that this city does need housing, and it needs really smart development. And to do that, it really takes a lot of time and effort and forward thinking. And it's not just about one piece of zoning, but it's about how the zoning is impacted and multiplied across the whole city, about how our city services and our schools and our public safety systems can really support that. It's about the interrelationship of that with our city's transportation, the MBTA. How do we absorb that? What makes sense commercially for growth? What makes sense for housing for growth? What areas of the city do we really want to build up? And what areas, do we already have existing issues? Is there a master plan for this city for housing? And if there isn't, why is there not one? Because this is a huge problem. And changing the zoning for one small area and asking one small area to take on that burden just disproportionately is not planning, it's not good governance, and it doesn't make sense. Leominster is in a position to be a forward-thinking leader in terms of sustainability and smart growth. That is not what this zoning does. This zoning shoves development down the throats of city's residents without any recourse. And it takes away tools from the city's planning board to help regulate and mitigate that development so it doesn't grow unchecked. This is a dangerous precedent to set for our city because as so goes this one ward, so it will go on repeat. Because as soon as developers see that it happened in one place, they're going to try to get their zoning changed so it can happen somewhere else. And I don't think we want to be that city. I truly don't believe it. I think there's a lot of smart people here who want real solutions for our city's residents because we really deeply care about this city. And this zoning doesn't do that. So I'm asking you to revert the zoning back to where it was, not because that was the best zoning possible, but because it made sense in a way that this current zoning does not. It was written by a developer without regard for city's residents. And if we have some issues with how that zoning manifests in terms of our ability to build new housing for the city, then let's address those individual aspects of that zoning. Let's look at, maybe we don't need the 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 industrial, commercial, residential for MU2. Maybe we don't need commercial on the ground floor. But those are small targeted changes that make sense. It is not taking away buffers, special permits, notice to residents, and the residents' voice in the process. And it is not increasing density to a point that the city services cannot support. So I'm asking you to revert it as a kind of pause so we can take stock of where we are and think strategically about the tactics we want to take to target this very specific areas of our zoning that do not make sense and change them to help in a way that creates smart, sustainable growth for our city that we can afford and that our citizens will support because that is what we want. Thank you.
Hi, Chelsea Madison, 65 Harvard Street. I just want to second what Haley and Liz just came up and stated. I won't go into super details, but I just want to say I understand that Leominster needs housing. We are in a housing crisis. By changing this zoning, you have removed the voice of the residents. And I just want to state, we are also helping Leominster grow. We are having families, we're having children. We should be a part of this. Just as much as Wood Partners is a part of developing the city, we should be a part of developing the city as well. By removing our voice, you're not allowing us to have input in our own neighborhood, in our own backyard. We are worried about safety, we're worried about the impact, we're worried about the traffic. We're not worried about people coming into our city and not wanting anyone in here. We're worried about realistic issues going on. And I just ask that you guys please revert the zoning back to its original zoning so the residents that are here, that have their homes here, that are raising families here, feel like we are not being left behind while this city gets developed. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. Chris Rainier from Goulston and Stores on behalf of Greg Lascotti.
Can you state his address for us?
Sure thing. Goulston and Stores, 400 Atlantic Avenue in Boston. I'm here on behalf of Greg Lascotti and Lascotti Development Corporation, and thank you for reading his letter into the record. I just want to emphasize some of his comments. It is accurate to say the prior zoning amendments to the MU2 district followed a planning process to identify areas of the city in which residential development could be encouraged. The prior planning process involved the creation of a housing committee, including the MRPC, and led to proposals provided to the planning board. The planning board did not advance all of the recommendations from the housing committee, but did advance a proposal to amend the MU2 district to allow for housing creation. As Mr. Lascotti's letter said, the provisions of then existing zoning had impeded housing creation. As a longtime owner, he is well positioned to understand the impediments to development. For example, the prior zoning required non-residential uses on the ground floor of each multifamily building, which is infeasible to construct. The current amendments are not introduced following a planning process. The prior amendments were recommended unanimously by the planning board before being approved 8-1 by the city council at its hearing in January of this year. The current amendments are not recommended for adoption by the planning board. Further, as noted in Director Wood's memorandum to the planning board, the special permit requirement was deliberately removed in the amendments earlier this year. However, the site plan review process is rigorous. The Wood Partners project was reviewed for many months. The site plan review process requires detailed plans and materials be submitted, including traffic impact statements, and peer reviews can be required to provide independent third-party review of impacts. This process can and does result in changes to a project. Interested parties are able to attend meetings, ask questions, and provide comments. We respectfully request that the proposed amendments be not approved by this council. They would undo recent thoughtful zoning changes adopted after a planning process. They would chill economic investment in the city and restrict urgently needed housing. Thank you.
I'm just going to follow up with a couple of comments about Mr. Renier's comments. Site plan review process is a stringent process, but it's based on the existing zoning. So if you have, 50-foot butters, then that's the maximum. That's what the site plan is going to review. So the site plan approval process can be as stringent as it needs to be, but when you're dealing with zoning that really is not adequate for a particular location, that's what the site plan, process is all about. And then secondly, the planning board vote, the recent planning board vote to not recommend was a split vote, was 3-3. 3 people who had voted for the changes earlier voted against them this time, now that they know all of the details. It was a 3-3 vote. The chairman was the tiebreaker, so he voted on that, and that's why it was a 4-3 vote. So I think that's very, very important for people to realize. The planning board, in hindsight, thought, we're not crazy about this. Half of them thought long and hard about it and decided that they weren't going to support it again. So I just wanted to address those 2 issues. But you're all set. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. Spencer Holland, Counsel for Wood Partners, the developer of the multifamily project at 86 Orchard Hill Park Drive. Our law firm's office is in Westboro. Happy to give the address, if that'd be helpful. 1800 West Park Drive. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before you again in opposition to this proposed amendment. I will focus on topics that I did not address at the last hearing and that are not covered in my colleague Brian Falk's letter. But I do want to begin with one point I mentioned in my prior remarks because it is so central to this issue and I think bears repeating. Since 2012, the MU2 district has ostensibly allowed multifamily housing, and yet there has been no housing development. This inescapable fact has persisted despite the presence of almost every other condition conducive to housing development. It has lingered despite nearby commercial amenities favorable to housing, endured throughout years of record low interest rates and booms in development, stretched across unprecedented demand for new housing, and inadequate supply. So how has this fact remained? In a word, zoning. This council sought to change that, and it succeeded. In reliance upon the zoning changes adopted just this last year, my client undertook its multifamily project. They hired engineers and architects, paid for studies, submitted detailed plans, went through numerous public hearings, responded to public and peer review comments, and obtained site plan approval under the zoning that was then and is still now on the books. That is exactly how the system is supposed to work. To change the zoning now, after my client has done everything the city has required of them and thrust the project into non-conforming status, would undermine confidence in the city's permitting process. It tells my client, as well as future applicants, that even if they play by the rules might change if the voices in the room get loud enough. The proposed amendment would revert to a zoning scheme that demonstrably does not work. Of course, for many following my client's permitting, the prior zoning worked splendidly exactly because it stifled development. Now, we've heard earlier that residents are not opposed to multifamily housing in general. I can tell you from firsthand experience attending the planning board hearings that for many residents that is not true. They stood here at this podium and said unequivocally that multifamily housing does not belong at this site. And when they said as much, they were met with rounds of applause. Now, I'm not here to judge that impulse to reject neighboring housing development. It's not unique to the site. It's a phenomenon that's not unique to Leominster. It happens all over the country. There's a reason we have an acronym for it. And I'm heartened to hear that residents here in attendance today have a more nuanced opinion on that. But again, I can tell you from attending multiple planning board hearings, that was not always the majority view here. And so I want to point out, as this council is hopefully already aware, that there is a distinct asymmetry inherent in the permitting process and at play in this proposed amendment. Current residents turn out in force and object to multifamily housing. Their voices are heard. The pressure from their numbers felt, I'm sure. But who is not here? The future residents of the much-needed housing at this site. Or if they are here, they don't know they're in that category yet. Not here are the folks looking to move out of their parents' homes, the seniors looking to downsize locally, and everyone in between. The future patrons of local businesses and members of this community. Their absence does not make their needs less real. As policymakers, you have a responsibility that extends beyond the desires of the people who happen to be in this room today. You are charged with making decisions for the long-term health, equity, and prosperity of the entire city, both current residents and future ones. The easy vote may be to support the amendment because it aligns with the views of those present, but the responsible vote, the vote that reflects the values of inclusion, opportunity, sound planning, and the integrity of the city's permitting process, is to oppose it. Thank you.
May I say one more thing? Okay, Chelsea Madison, 65 Harvard Street. Just to kind of backtrack here. So Wood Partners has been saying that this has been a very detailed, rigorous thing that they've been going through. I just want to mention that a resident had to pay out of their own pocket to get a stormwater report from the information that Wood Partners provided and their engineer provided. And that independent report showed 18 pages of how everything was incorrect, not up to code, not up to ordinance. So to sit here and say this was well detailed, well planned, well thought out is absolutely incorrect. They also did not answer half of the DEP's questions, and the questions that they did answer were given very insulting answers of how is wildlife supposed to be maintained. Well, they've adapted to urban living thus far. They'll be able to adapt to this as well. So to say that this is detailed and this is planned is not a correct statement. Again, it goes back to the planning board needs to have power, city council needs to have power, residents need to have power. We do not care that housing is coming in. We care that it's done strategic, that it's done right, and that it's done for the city to be able to build smart and correctly. Thank you.
Donna Millette, 58 Sky Lane. I need to acknowledge that from the zoning in 2012 to current day, there's other reasons why the MU2 district was not developed, and that is because it was wetlands. If you look back at when an individual who was formerly employed by the city of Leominster did a delineation of that land, ignoring certified wetlands, certified vernal pools, that delineation magically allowed for this plan to move forward to the state that it is today. So I do think that that's important to mention because that gets left out a lot. Sure, it hasn't been developed and it had that zoning since 2012, but it was wetlands. This parcel was designated wetlands until it was magically delineated, excluding the important parts of it, so that now it can suddenly, with very, very liberal zoning, be overdeveloped. Thank you.
Sorry, I'll be really blunt. Haley Brady, 200 Harvard Street. Just a couple fallacies. This area most likely wasn't developed because it had a restriction on it that industrial needed to be built before housing. It's always had multifamily allowed by right at 12 point whatever per acre, but that requirement for industrial before likely prevented. Because as we've seen, we got the grant, we built the road trying for industrial didn't work. So revert that. Take away that, the requirement that only a third of this district could be built out for multifamily. That's fine. I don't think anybody here cares about those provisions. We care about are the special permits, the 5-foot buffers, needing to drop thousands of dollars to have our own stormwater reports done to show that their calculations are directly shoving stormwater and all of this discharge onto our properties. We all kept saying that, but nobody would listen. So it took money for us to prove that these were inadequate designs. And you know what? The litigation for Wood Partners, he is correct. Who's not here? Future Leominster residents. And if they were, I'm sure they would love to know. So Wood Partners has a special contract with Greystar Property Managers. All of Wood Partners' properties will be managed by Greystar. If you research them, DOJ has multiple lawsuits out against them, FTC, class actions in Arizona, California, Colorado. The DOJ ones mostly because they charge service members after being deployed, still held them accountable and charged them rents and wouldn't let them back out of their leases. The FTC, mostly because of junk fees. Trash valet, mail services, forced to use their... For the FTC to have multiple lawsuits against you, it's habitual. It's a practice. So Wood Partners is the developer, but this property will be managed by Greystar, and I implore you to look them up. And it will give you a sneak peek of what the future Leominster residents living at these properties will be dealing with. Staring at the back of a Target wall because they are trying to get the max build out possible in this area. Unwilling to scale it back minimally. That would make the residents happy, would make future residents happy, would mitigate all of the issues. Thousands of dollars wouldn't need to be dropped into these stormwater plans if they weren't trying to squeeze every last inch. So hearing that just got me a little fired up because when we have these new residents, we're going to have to be dealing with these issues. And the city as a whole doesn't have the money for litigation to deal with it. They shouldn't have to. The state of Massachusetts shouldn't have to take out these class action lawsuits, like unfortunately a handful of other states have had to do because of their practices. The other one with the FTC was their coordination of algorithmic price fixing. They're the largest developer of multi-family homes in the entire nation. Well, they coordinate, and they raise their prices. It's a coordinated effort across the entire United States to keep rent prices high. Unfortunately, my generation, the one after that, knows this firsthand. You're pricing us out of everywhere, and yes, we need housing, absolutely. The state's doing that through the MBTA, through ADUs, but we're allowing these giant developers who do not give a crap about this city, or the residents, or the future residents, to have complete control and monopoly over it. We are giving up our dream of buying a home, building a future, and giving it to these guys in suits to do whatever they want and tell us, well, $100,000 is fine for a sidewalk. The city can pick up the rest of the cost. No, they're gonna make millions. They should be on the hook for this. Or at least the city should have the right to ask them for it. But everything, I would love to provide all of the information backing anything I say, but most of that I'm hearing is just BS. And it's got me a little upset, so sorry.
Liz Macarella, 75 Harvard Street. Following up on that, the future residents of the 86 Orchard Hill Park Drive property development, he's right, they're not here, but they're also not our city's elderly or grown children trying to get out of their parents' homes. This is not affordable housing that they're building. This is market rate housing. And if I remember back a month or so ago when there were the elections going on and there was the debates, I believe most of you were asked a question about housing for the city and about whether we wanted affordable or market rate housing and which should be the priority. And of all the debates I watched, and granted I don't think I caught everyone, but I caught quite a few, everyone said affordable housing. No one said market rate. There were comments about there need to be a balance, but when people needed to choose one or the other, they pointed to affordable housing, and they pointed to the problems of our aging population here and growing children who need to get out of their parents' homes. And that is not what this housing is about. One of the reasons that this site hasn't been developed previously, in addition to the fact that the industrial development was a known impediment to the residential, but the other issue is the topography, the grading, the water table only being about 18 inches below the surface. It makes it all very, very difficult and challenging to build on this site. And then you throw in the certified vernal pools and the wetland delineation, and you have to be pretty determined to build on this particular parcel of land. You also need to be very, very careful. We all know about the flood that happened here 2 years ago. We should be thinking really hard about the kind of development that we want so that we are not exacerbating the flooding problem for the city. And
If we're going to start discussing flooding, I think we're getting a little far afield from what's before us.
My
I
point-
think the latitude should be great, but, we need to constrain this to what's before us.
okay, then my tie-in for that is that I believe because of the need for the housing, we are looking at tougher sites to put that housing on. And we're looking at them as more viable options than we did in the past because of the great need. And my point with that is that when we're looking at these sites that are tighter and harder to build on, we need more oversight and more tools to make sure that those developments are done well and correctly for the city. We don't need less oversight and things being allowed by right because these sites are more challenging. I'm a professional architect. I'm not just saying this because I've read it somewhere. This is my bread and butter, and I understand it. I understand what goes into a well-thought-through development. We don't need things by right. You want your professionals involved in the project to do their due diligence, and you want them to include that data to the city. And speaking as a professional, it is my privilege to be able to present projects like that to a community. And I'm not burdened by having to prove why something would be good for the city. It should be good for the city, or I'm not doing my job. And if somebody is trying to come in and saying that because there is regulation, because there is oversight, because more data is needed, that is somehow a burden on the professional planning and development side of things, that is simply not true. That is part of that profession. And that should be a part of the profession in the city as well. Thank you.
Angela Corey, 22 Pierce Street. I have one question, and I'd like one, two of you to give me a good reason. First, I want to say, I understand that this project is not affected by your decision tonight. So that being said, I'd like a good reason why you would give up the oversight in the city of Leominster.
Is there anybody else in the audience who would like to speak about in support or against 926?
Kim Brady, 214 Harvard Street. I've lived here in this house that I live in now for my whole life. When I was growing up, I remember driving up Elm Street, and I was thought, like, why would people live way up here? Now it's all developed, all the way up, right up to the line, okay? Off of Prospect Street, there's new housing developments everywhere. That's growth. That's growth. I mean, some small apartment complexes, that's growth. You put this in, what happens if next year someone else wants to put in 300, 400, 500, 1,000 units the next year? They can do it by right. They can just do it because we're allowing them to. What is a good growth for a city to have? Is it 2%, 3%? And all of a sudden, if 1 year it's 8%, does that? And I don't know these numbers. I'm kind of asking you. What is a good amount a reasonable amount to grow every year? If all of a sudden we jump up to 12%, or we jump up to, whatever percent is higher than what normal, that's going to tax all of our schools and everything. There's housing everywhere. We've been doing housing. My dad built a lot of the houses in Leominster. We've seen things grow over my lifetime. We all know there's a new little street everywhere. If Leominster grows too fast, like the United States has grown so fast, how do we're now paying for a lot of people coming into the country. Our health insurance is lacking. Ours is like tripled in the last few years. I mean, we just can't afford it. We need to bring it back and just do reasonable. If you let this go in and other developments go in, then for the next few years, do you back off and say, okay, we've really stretched things. Now it's too late. The schools can't afford, all of these kids in there. So what's reasonable? Can you say we can only have so many building permits for the next couple of years because we've taxed everything? Can we just slow down on something? Other towns say, we're only going to grow so much every year. I mean, can we be that way? Can we just grow a reasonable amount instead of a lot? You're just saying that, all the ADUs, everything's coming in. Can we just keep growing? When is enough enough? When is Leominster full? When do we max out? Do we just keep going because they're allowed to? Do we just keep giving out building permits and, what's enough? Yeah.
Is there anybody else in the audience who would like to speak either in support of or in opposition to petition 9-26? I'll ask for a second time. Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to speak? And for a third and final time, is there anybody who'd like to speak? Is there any city councilor who would like to have any comments or whatever?
All I would say is, I think it's been borne out, since 2012, this project could have been constructed with 225 units, by my calculations. 12 and a half by right per acre, no special permit required. That math, if it serves me, is 225 units. What happened here, and some of the speakers pointed it out, the significant or most significant thing that happened is the removal of the requirement that the first floor be used for a commercial purpose. That's the most significant thing that happened. When we were trying to save North Leominster from the requirements of the MBTA project or law imposed on us by the state, we considered requiring that those units have commercial use on the first floor, and we were told it's a little aggressive because you'll never build a single unit. We moved a lot of that housing out of North Leominster to South Leominster and to the western side of Leominster. In my view, that's the most significant thing that happened, is the commercial use was eliminated. Now, the special permit required was for more than 12 and a half units. So if you would get to where the project is now, or what's proposed right now by Wood Partners, you would need a special permit to build the 75 or so units that is what's on the table right now. That's the facts. I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, I mean, the density, you know, the density change, it was 75% of an increase by right. 75% by right. There's no more special permit, you know, above a certain level.
225 to 308. I don't think that's 75% increase.
It is a 75% increase.
How do you get 75% from the district, from 25 and 75, add those up and divide 75 by 300? I don't think that comes up to 75%.
It was, because it went from 12.4 units per acre by right up to 21 acres by
Well,
right, 21.8
I'm talking,
units by right.
that's still not 75%.
It is. It's 9 extra units.
12
So
is,
9 extra units.
12 is more than half of 21, so I don't know how you get to 75%. The math doesn't work for me.
It's 9, well, that's what it is. I've done the
All
math,
right,
you know,
well,
a bunch of times.
it's
So
7
anyways,
o'clock.
7 o'clock. So we will start our meeting. So at this point, my recommendation is to keep the public hearing open. As we had said earlier, the planning director is going to join us on the 8th.
All right,
So-
so just in fairness, though, because we talked this afternoon, that will require further time.
Right.
And we'll vote on that during the regular meeting. So, it's 7 o'clock, let's start the
Yep.
meeting with a pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll start with a roll call with councilors in attendance, starting with Councilor David Cormier.
Present.
Councilor Pauline Cormier.
Present.
Councilor Arndinger.
Present.
Councilor Noseworthy.
Present.
Councilor Tossi.
Present.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr.
Present.
Councilor Roberts.
Present.
Councilor Frida.
Present.
And I shall be marked present. All 9 councilors are in attendance. Does the chairwoman of records have a report?
Mr. President, I have reviewed the minutes from September 22nd, 2025. I haven't heard any comments and objections from any other member of the council, so I'm saying that they are in good order, and I'm asking them to be filed.
Very well. Unless there's any objection, those be put on file. I'd entertain a motion for recess. Councilor David Cormier, Councilor Arndinger. Any discussion? All in favor, please recognize usual way. We are in recess.
So this is a continued public hearing on petition 3-26. Glenn Eaton, Executive Director, Montechusett Regional Planning Commission, request to amend the zoning ordinance to replace Article 15, accessory apartments, with a new Article 15 that complies with recently passed state law and make other changes to implement the new ordinance. Nobody is here from the MRPC.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. So we don't have anybody here from the MRPC this evening. My understanding is that the planning board did come up with numerous changes to the accessory dwelling unit language. We haven't seen that yet, have we, Liz? Did you get anything back from the planning board? Okay, all right. So at this point, I would continue the public hearing, and we'll schedule that during the regular meeting on 12/8. Right. Is there anybody in the public who would like to speak on petition 3-26, either in support of it or in opposition for a second time? Would anybody like to speak in support of 3-26, and for a final time, would anybody like to speak or comment on petition 3-26? Okay. Yep, seeing none, we'll continue the public hearing. Thank you.
You all set?
Yeah.
Okay. We have a public hearing, which was supposed to be at 6:30 PM before the City Council on Finance, C-2018 Dean J. Mazzarella Mayor requests that the tax classification hearing be held on November 24, 2025. I will ask all the members of Rena Gagney, the Assessor's Office,
Hey, folks.
We all know who you are, but if you could identify yourselves for the public.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rena Gagné, Chief Assessor.
Good evening, Steve Spagnolo, Assistant Assessor.
Rick Dondero, Assistant Assessor.
I'm Jennifer Reddington, the City Comptroller.
Thank you all for being here this evening. With me this evening is the other members of Finance, Councilor Cormier, Pauline Cormier, and Councilor Tossi. So I know you, as customary every year, prepare a nice booklet for us and go over all the highlights. So at this point, I'll let the floor be yours, and you can explain to us and the public the data that you've put together, and we'll have some questions, comments, discussion, and then ask what you recommend we do for the next year.
So we don't like to make recommendations, just to be clear. That's your choice of whether you want to split. We're just going to give you the data. So everybody should have received their booklet, and we did some upgrades to it this year. Hopefully it's a little clearer. In the beginning pages, you've got some just information about what we do in the assessor's office and how we come up with fair market values. Then on page 9 starts our 10-year history. It shows the tax rate and how it has changed over the past several years. From 2017 to 26, we've seen the tax rate go down. That being said, on the next page, in the red, you can see where the valuations have gone up over the last several years. This can be a little confusing. So in red, the tax rate is going up, and if you see the blue, that is not a fluctuation of the value change, but that is a fluctuation of where it's gone from year to year. Kind of, it's up and down. It's not been a straight upward. What that means is, in 22 we had a spike of 13%, and that's reflective of the sales from COVID. So the values so the sales spiked, the values have always gone up. Then on page 12 we have our our DSL. That this is the information that we put into DSL, and they review, and we get approval. We have gotten our approval for our values. On page 13, it shows our 2 years, last year and this year, and the difference in the 2 years. It shows our parcel count difference over the last 2 years. Last year we had a question about the counts, so I tried to put a little more verbiage in this year so that you could have a little more understanding. Is there any questions so far, or no? Okay. Page 14 is an illustration of the 15-year value change in the dollar amount and the percentage. So you can see that's a little bit all over the place.
That's the page I went to immediately.
It is?
Yeah, well, because I'd like to know the percentage of commercial and industrial to residential. To me, that's the whole crux of this.
So if you look at page 18,
Yep.
I think that is the best page to show the difference. And when you're talking about a shift, where the shift is, the burden is, and we try to really show that.
If you took the personal property out, I think it gets closer to about 14% commercial and industrial. Is that, my numbers off?
So personal property, we have 1,144 personal property.
Well, in any event, it's less than 17%, right?
It is less.
If you subtract the personal property
Yes, if you
out.
subtract the personal property, it's going to be less.
Yeah.
But your personal property, it's commercial, industrial, personal property.
Correct, I understand.
Okay,
Yeah,
we
no.
can't really take that out of that equation if we're splitting the tax rate.
Right,
Okay.
right. But you're going to punish, the whole idea of this is to give real relief to the residential
Correct.
taxpayer, because commercial and industrial properties make up such a small percentage of the overall total. You're going to have to punish them pretty dramatically to give real residential
Correct.
relief, and as a result, they don't come here, and it gets worse.
Potentially.
Yeah.
And that's what I think we have, on which page? I think you're just got a little bit ahead of me.
Yeah,
Because we do show that if we were going to
Right.
change it to $20 for commercial, industrial, personal property, the taxpayers for residential open space would only have really a $1 discount.
right.
So that's,
That's the argument we have
that's the
every year.
argument.
Every year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Page 26 will show that,
Yeah,
from
Yeah.
the maximum, if it went up 1.5 on the commercial, industrial, personal.
yeah.
You save about $1.40 on residential, and the commercials would go up almost $4 on that. So $6.83
yeah,
actually.
yeah, they really go up because it's, we're looking at a potential 1367 on our tax rate if we stay without the shift.
Just anecdotally, if communities that do in fact split and decide that they want to try to get back to a factor of 1, that gets difficult, doesn't it?
Well, we have that too.
Yeah.
That is on page
Pittsburgh would tell you that.
35.
Yeah, right, exactly.
No.
Page 27?
Yes, so you can see where there's, in that 25, you can see where it's changed from 24 to 25. Every year there's some changes. That's because some communities decide that they want to go back to the single tax rate.
I see.
So from 24 to 25, there's a 10 city difference where it's dropped. Do you see that?
Yep.
Yeah.
It could be.
Are there any other highlights, Irina, that you'd like to? I have a couple of questions, but I'll wait until you're all set.
Well, we kind of jumped ahead a bit. Page 30, that shows the tax bill and the fiscal years and what it's gone up. And I think that on page 29, you can see what it's gone up every year.
288.63.
Correct, yeah.
Was the average.
For this year, 288.63. Yeah. And you can see how that's changed over the years, too. Some years there's been a little bit of less of jump. And that's all market-driven. I mean, we can't control that. You know, it depends on what's a willing buyer and a willing seller, so.
Okay. All right, are there any, does anybody from finance have any questions? Councilor Cormier?
No, I'm good.
Councilor Tossi, do you have any questions?
So is that 288.63 etched in stone? Is that what it's going to be, or?
That's on the medium, so it's not across the board.
Okay, all right.
It's, right.
Are you all set, Councilor Tossi?
Yes, yeah, thank you.
So one of the questions that I have, we look at the top 10 taxpayers in the city. Unless I'm missing something, the mall is no longer on here. That was on here for a long time.
The mall's there.
Where is it?
The Leo Mall,
Oh, okay,
Leo Mass Mall.
Leo
Yeah.
Law is there. I didn't realize it's a different name.
Well,
But-
it's the Hull Group,
Right.
so.
And that's the only mall that's on there, right? That's the only plaza of that?
No,
What
Water
other-
Tower Plaza.
Water Tower.
You just don't recognize the name.
And then Lowe's is Moose Creek. That's
Okay.
Lowe's in that
Thank you.
plaza.
Okay.
And you have to remember, because the way some of the properties are, the ownership is categorized, they may be they may appear to be one owner, but it could be 3 different
ownerships.
Okay.
So some of the owners in town have their property in a trust where they might have 2 parcels in a trust and they have 3 parcels in their private names. It's just the way they do their business. It's mostly for mortgage purposes.
And I think, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you can see that there's been a shift, like when you look at some of the apartments versus a commercial. Some of the apartments have lost value, if I'm not mistaken, but then the others have gained. Like, for example, Emerald Craig B. Trustee, which is Brooks Pond, was 48.7 million last year, and now it's 34.2.
Because, again, Brooks Pond has 3 different ownerships.
Okay.
So, Polly, Rick is...
Yeah, another thing that's happening there, David, there's multiple parcels. So you look at Brooks Pond as one thing, multiple parcels, each parcel, they have different ownership. So when he
So you have to add
combines-
them up.
and when
You
he-
have to
yeah,
add those
you
2
have to
up.
add those together, actually, to get the
To
full
s-
value of Brooks
right.
Pond. But what he's also doing is he's moving the land around.
Mhm.
So he's changing the plan. So you almost have to add those together to get
A real...
a real.
And we
map
can't do
of-
that because...
It's by the ownership.
It's by
It's
ownership.
by ownership, right.
It's not by...
Not the
We may know
property.
who it is, but that doesn't give us the right to tell everybody who it is.
I
A
got
little
you.
misleading.
Yes.
not only that,
Does anybody else have any, Councilor Shalfo-Zephyr?
I do. Yep, thank you very much. On the next page, on page 34, you talk about TIFs, the tax increment financing as new growth. And I know that we have 7, I guess, that are currently
Yes,
on the
that's
books,
correct.
right? Do you have a schedule of those?
Yes, we do.
Could we have a copy of that?
I don't see why not.
Yeah, I'm curious.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
we approved the TIFs, and I'm just curious as
Oh,
to
sure.
what those
Yes,
7 are
I
and
can
where we
email
are
it.
in their life.
I can email you those. Thank you. You're welcome.
Thanks.
All set? Anybody
Yep.
else have any questions? Okay, this time I'll go to the public. Does anybody from the public have any questions or comments or want to speak in favor or opposition to C-28? If so, please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Once again, if anybody from the public has any input on C-28, please step to the podium. Please state your name and address for the record.
Peter Haggis, 333 Elm Street. I just want to state something for the benefit of the public because, and it's nobody's fault, this is the way that you talk about it, but right, $1 savings on the tax rate isn't $1 savings. It's $1,000 for all of your total value. So it's hundreds of dollars in savings if you were to do a split tax rate. And I understand that money is then shifted over to CIP to businesses. But it's not just $1 savings. You're talking about hundreds of dollars in savings per resident, depending on their property value. And I just wanted to mention that because it hasn't been mentioned so far. So when the public is thinking about what this all means. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Would anybody else like to speak in favor or against C-28? Once again, would anybody like to speak in favor or against C-28? And for the last time, would anybody like to speak in favor of or against C-28? Any last comments before I close the public hearing? And we'll take this up later in the meeting, but I'm going to recommend that we remain with a factor of 1, as we always have, and keep our tax rate the way it is. If no other questions or comments, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Thank you guys very much for
welcome.
coming.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it, let's get ahead with it.
Here we go. This is a public hearing, 6:35 public hearing at 7:20, on petition 21-26, Massachusetts Electric Company doing business as National Grid of North Andover, Massachusetts, that it desires to construct a line of underground electric conduits, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures under and across the public way or ways herein after named. Wherefore, appraised that after due notice and hearing as provided by law, it be granted permission to excavate the public highways and to run and maintain underground electric conduits together with such sustaining and protecting fixtures as it may find necessary for the transmission of electricity, said underground conduits to be located substantially in accordance with the plan filed herewithin marked Main Street, Leominster, Massachusetts. The following are the streets and highways referred to. Plan number 305-79379 Main Street, National Grid to install, beginning at a point approximately 31 feet south of the center line of the intersection of Green Street and Main Street. Remove existing tree guy and install 6-foot sidewalk guy on P15 Main Street. I believe we have a representative from National Grid here. If you'd like to come up to the table and give us the overview of the work.
Good evening. We have 3 petitions tonight, I believe.
Could you just give us your name, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Lenny Martinez.
Thank you.
On the corner of Main Street and Morton Street, we're looking to install an anchor on pole 26.
We're starting with the Green Street, Main Street.
Sorry, yes.
Thank you.
Green Street and Main Street, we want to install an anchor on that pole 15 and remove that tree guy that's there.
I'll go to members of my committee first to see if there are any questions. Councilor Frida? No. Councilor Noseworthy?
No questions.
The rest of the council, any questions? Before I go to members of the public, I just want to read the 2 referrals that we got back on this petition because the one from the DPW matters with regard to a comment that was made. So we referred it to the police department. We received a letter back on November 17th from Sergeant Robichaud. Good morning. The Leominster Police Department is not opposed to and has no comments regarding the 3 petitions from National Grid. We also received a letter on November 14th from Ray Racine, the DPW director. It says, Dear Elizabeth, the Leominster Department of Public Works has reviewed the petition to install a guy on Main Street and offers the following comments. The DPW approves the petition as submitted. However, the city is still waiting for National Grid to finish petition 2-25 on Lancaster Street. The failure to remove the tree results in the DPW not being able to finish the sidewalk. As a result, the sidewalk is not ADA compliant. Please let us know if you have any questions. Sincerely, Raymond Racine, DPW Director. When we got that letter back, I asked the city clerk to reach out to National Grid with regard to that petition, and I am trying to find the email that I got back today. I apologize.
Was that the tree we tried to save?
That's the tree that's still there.
Famous
You will remember the tree
It's all
that we tried to save.
That's right.
It's literally just a trunk right now. Everything's been cut off.
So the email that we received back from National Grid says the following: the tree has been removed down to the guy wire. The remainder of the tree butt cannot be removed until the guy wire has been taken out. The guide out pole isn't in great shape, so that will need to be done at the same time with OH, a forestry crew, and log truck. Dan has this job. It has been handed off to OH contact crews. We have discussed scheduling it in early to mid-December. So I just want to make sure that everybody had that reference before we moved forward. With that being said, I'll go to members of the public. Is there anyone in attendance that would like to speak in favor of or against petition 21-26? For a second time? For a third and final time? Seeing none, Mr. President, I'll close this public hearing.
Might have a Yule log by then.
Might, just might. This is a 6:36 public hearing on petition 22-26, Massachusetts Electric Company doing business as National Grid of North Andover, Massachusetts, that it desires to construct a line of underground electric conduits, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures under and across the public way or ways hereinafter named. Where appraised that after due notice and hearing as provided law, it be granted permission to excavate the public highways and to run and maintain underground electric conduits together with such sustaining and protecting fixtures as it may find necessary for the transmission of electricity. Said underground conduits to be located substantially in accordance with the plan filed here within marked Main Street, Leominster, Massachusetts. The following are the streets and highways referred to: Plan 305-79379 Main Street, National Grid to install, beginning at a point approximately 30 feet south of the center line of the intersection of Morton Street and Main Street. Install 6-foot sidewalk guy on P26 Main Street. If you'd like to give us the quick overview on this one.
Yeah, we just wanted to install a guy on pole 26 on the corner of Main Street and Morton Street to make sure the pole doesn't fall over at some point.
I don't have any questions. Councilor Frida? Councilor Noseworthy?
No questions.
The rest of the council?
I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
So I'm just looking at the sketch. So a new pole, pole 1 is on the corner of Morton and Main, right? Is that a new pole?
I show it as existing.
Okay. And does it reach across the street for, I'm confused. What are you eliminating and why, and where are you putting in the guy, the sidewalk guy?
On pole 26 on Main Street.
Yep.
We're looking to put a sidewalk guy on that pole. I would assume to anchor back pole 1, but I'm not 100% sure. I don't show that here.
Okay.
Any other members of the council have any questions? Seeing none, I'll go to members of the public. Is there anybody in attendance that would like to speak in favor of or against petition 22-26? For a second time? For a third and final time? Seeing none, I will close this public hearing, Mr. President.
I'll be abstaining from the next one.
Okay.
Petition 23-26, Massachusetts Electric Company doing business as National Grid and Verizon New England, Inc. requests permission to locate poles, wires, and fixtures, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures along and across the following public way. Main Street, National Grid to install 1 jointly owned pole on Main Street beginning at a point approximately 94 feet southeast of the center line of the intersection of Main Street and Priest Street. Removing existing tree guy, install stub pole 37-84, 70 feet southeast from P37 and sidewalk guy 4 feet off driveway. Wherefore to praise that after due notice and hearing as provided by law, it be granted a location for and permission to erect and maintain poles and wires, together with such sustaining and protecting fixtures as it may find necessary, said poles to be erected substantially in accordance with the plan filed here within marked Main Street, Leominster, Massachusetts, number 305-79379, October 13th, 2025. Also for permission to lay and maintain underground laterals, cables, and wires in the above or intersecting public ways for the purpose of making connections with such poles and buildings as each of said petitioners may desire for distributing purposes. Once again, if you could just give us a quick overview.
Of course. We're looking to install a pole approximately 70 feet away from pole 37 on Main Street so that we can anchor that pole back and eliminate that tree guy that's going back there about 100 feet.
Okay. Wonderful. I don't have any questions, Councilor Frida. Councilor Noseworthy.
Oh, I'm assuming that the person, it says the sidewalk guy 4 feet off driveway, so I'm assuming that person is aware.
They would have been notified of this public hearing, correct?
Right.
Madam
Yes, they
Clerk?
were. Okay, thank you. That's it.
Wonderful. And I haven't heard anything separate to this.
That's not the cemetery, right?
Yes.
Is it the cemetery? So it's
It-
being
House
installed
next to
in?
the cemetery.
Yeah, it's
It's a
right.
house next to the cemetery, right? So it's not in the cemetery? Okay, that was my question. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yep, that's my understanding as
All
well.
right.
Any other councilors have any questions? Seeing none, I'll go to members of the public. Anyone that would like to speak in favor of or against 23-26? For a second time? For a third and final time? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You picked up some ground. All right, we'll now conduct the public forum. The public forum is an opportunity for any member of the audience to speak on a matter specifically listed on the council agenda. Speakers will be asked to come to the microphone and state their formal name and address, along with identifying the specific item or items they wish to address. Each speaker is respectfully asked to keep their comments within a 2-minute time frame. The council will not be responding or answering any questions. However, at the discretion of the council president, clarification may be given. And we have one sign-up who spoke in the public hearing, Haley Brady. Okay. Is there any other member of the public not listed on the sign-up sheet that wishes to address the city council this evening on an agenda item? And for a second time, is there any member of the public that wishes to address the city council on an agenda item? And a third and final time, is there any member of the public that wishes to address the city council on an agenda item in the public forum? Seeing none, I'll declare the public forum closed, and we will go into communications from the mayor, starting with C-29.
Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that an appropriation of $293,402 be made to the Public Works Capital Outlay Expense Account, the same to be transferred from the stabilization account. These funds are for the purchase of a new international six-wheel dump truck and sander.
C-29 is referred to the chairman of finance.
C-29 is first time on the calendar, Mr. President, regular course.
Very well, C-29 has been given regular course. Moving on to C-30.
Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that the City Council of the City of Leominster, on behalf of the pursuit to the authority granted Chapter 82, Sections 21 through 24, and Chapter 79 of the Massachusetts General Laws as amended, and any and every other power and authority which is hereunto in any way enabling, take by eminent domain, permanent and temporary easements for any and all purposes for which the public ways are used in the City of Leominster, including without limitation for the construction and maintenance of rights-of-way, sidewalks, drainage, utilities, and other structures and/or appurtenances, and/or for any and all other purposes and uses incidental or related thereto, within parcels of land located on or near Lancaster Street and Union Street, and shown on a plan entitled 2025 Lancaster Street Layout and Easement Plan, and a plan entitled 2025 Union Street Layout and Easement Plan, both dated November 21st, 2025, and prepared by GCG Associates Incorporated, copies of which are on file with the city clerk, as said plans made for a term of 5 years, and in connection within, adopt and execute in order of taking to acquire said rights and easements and award damages for the taking of the owners identified in Schedule A attached to the order of the taking, with the specific amounts awarded to each owner being set forth in Schedule B, attached to but not recorded with the said order of the taking, and any and all other documents related thereto, and further take any and all other actions as may be necessary or appropriate to accomplish the foregoing.
C-30 is referred to the chairman of property, Councilor Arndinger.
Regular course.
Need to establish a hearing date, I would
Oh,
assume,
yeah.
right? How about December 8th at, let's go with 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
Yep, if that's okay with you.
That's fine. Thank you.
All right, I'll check with members of your committee. Yeah, Councilor Shalfo?
We don't have Schedule A and B.
I'm sure we can get it. Can we make sure that that's emailed to
I
us?
certainly will.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for pointing that out. Councilor Robbins, you okay with that? And Councilor Tossi?
I agree.
All right. All those in favor of establishing the hearing date for C-30 on December 8th at 6 p.m., please recognize the usual manner. All right, so that may be done. That's moving on to C-31.
Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, respectfully request that an appropriation of $15,000 be made to the Emergency Management Expense Account, the same to be transferred from the Stabilization Fund. These funds will be used to cover the cost of Code Red Emergency Notification System, which has increased over the years, as well as other departmental expenses such as electricity.
C-31 is referred to the chairman of finance.
First time on the calendar, Mr. President, regular course.
Very well. C-31 has been given regular course. Moving on to C-32.
Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, respectfully request that an appropriation of $1,227.35 be made to Perma-Line Corporation of New England out of the mayor's capital expense line in the general fund, the same to be transferred from the opioid stabilization fund. Regarding, we previously purchased 25 signs and have recently purchased an additional 25 signs to install throughout the community. These signs fall directly within the guidelines of the opioid settlement regulations, which allow for funding of public awareness and prevention initiatives.
C-32 is referred to the chairman of finance.
First time on the calendar, Mr. President, regular course.
Very well. C-32 has been given regular course. Moving on to petitions. First time on the agenda, starting with 26-26.
Richard M. Marchand requests the use of the city's properties to host the 33rd Annual Johnny Appleseed Arts, Cultural, and Multicultural Food Festival on September 19th, 2026. in the heart of downtown Leominster. In the event of inclement weather or other unforeseen circumstances, they request approval for a postponement date of Saturday, September 26, 2026. To ensure the safety and enjoyment of all attendees, we respectfully request the following street and parking area closures from 5 a.m. to approximately 7 p.m. on the day of the event. Street closures: Upper West Street from School Street to the intersection of Mechanic Street, Park Street entire length, Main Street from the intersection of Miriam Ave to Park Street, including the front of Monument Square. Parking lot closures: City Hall parking lot, adjacent parking lot next to City Hall, city parking lot between First Baptist Church and First Church Lutheran. This lot will be designated for handicap parking and for individuals with health challenges to ensure accessible entry to the festival grounds.
26-26 is referred to the chairman of city property.
This is an ongoing petition that we review every year, and at this point I would suggest regular course and with a referral from the police and DPW.
Okay. Any public hearing required by this? No?
No.
Okay. All right, so 26-26 is being a regular course with referrals to the police department and DPW. Moving on to matters before the city council, starting with the financial report.
Thank you, Mr. President. We began our fiscal year on July 1st, 2025, with the stabilization account balance being $24,173,510.41. We've earned interest in the amount of $174,186.94. To date, we will have spent, provided the appropriations that are on there for the first time as well, $2,385,402, which would leave us with a balance of $21,962,295.35. The capital stabilization began with $4,593,191.62. We have spent $2,261,190, and that leaves us with a balance of $2,332,001.62. And the opioid stabilization began with $577,545.87. We've received proceeds in the amount of $159,226.25, and we have spent and will have spent, provided C-32 is also passed, $249,371.46, and that'll leave us with a balance of $487,400.66, and that is the financial report.
Any questions? Council Shalfo-Zephyr?
Yeah, through the chair to the Ward 3 Council. Any news on free cash?
I have not heard
Or the
anything yet.
process?
I will double check with her. I know that last year it was submitted, I think, the week of Thanksgiving, so it's.
Oh, I thought it was earlier, but.
Yeah, it should be soon.
that's fine.
I'll see if I
Okay.
can get a date from
Thank
the
you.
comptroller. You're welcome.
Okay, all right. Moving on to finance and C-26, is the chairman ready to report?
Yes, Mr. President, C-26, Dean J. Mazzarella Mayor requests that the Patricia and David LaPlante Scholarship Trust Fund for Leominster High School be established. We have a letter here from David LaPlante, dated November 5th, 2025. Dear Mayor Mazzarella, I would like to have you petition the City Council to allow for the creation of 2 new trust fund accounts for the City of Leominster as follows: the Patricia LaPlante Memorial Trust Fund for the Leominster Library, and the Patricia and David LaPlante Scholarship Trust Fund for Leominster High School. Once they are established, they will be pre-funded so that these funds invested can grow over time. I will provide further details and instructions to the City Treasurer once the accounts are set up. Please let me know if you have any questions, and thank you for your time and consideration. Sincerely, David R. LaPlante. So obviously, this is a very generous gift that a now citizen of the City of Leominster would like to make by starting these trust funds and funding them. And just so the public is aware, they are public trust funds, and they can accept donations from anybody that chooses to contribute to them. Obviously, Mr. LaPlante is a former city employee. He was our treasurer and is making these trust funds available and obviously starting a donation, and we appreciate that very much. And it would be my recommendation that we grant it'd be my recommendation as the finance chair that we grant C-26, and I ask that you check with members of my committee.
Councilor Pauline Cormier?
I agree.
And Councilor Tosse?
I agree.
You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-26. Is there any further discussion? Other than to recognize the incredible work that David LaPlante did for us all. And
Absolutely.
he continues to honor our city with this establishment of these funds. All right, all those in favor, please recognize usual manner. All right, so C-26 passes by a vote of 9-0. Moving on to C-27.
C-27, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that the Patricia LaPlante Memorial Trust Fund for the Leominster Library be established. The same letter that I just read was submitted. I won't reread it, but I will say once again that the city is very grateful to have such residents like Mr. LaPlante that is, wants to add these trust funds so that our library and anybody that's going to be a recipient of a scholarship will benefit, I'm sure, many, many years down the road. So it'd be my recommendation that we grant C-27 and ask that you check with members of my committee.
Councilor Pauline Cormier?
I agree.
Councilor Tosse?
I agree.
You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-27. Councilor Shalfo?
I just want to say, so this is a memorial trust fund for the Leominster Public Library. I mean, over the years, Mr. LaPlante has been a huge help to the library. The library has, I don't know how many trust funds, 20, 25?
At least.
At least, right, a lot of them, and they go way, way back. So Mr. LaPlante has always really helped manage those for the library. He was very, very helpful with Susan Shelton, the prior director, and to this day still really is very supportive. So this is wonderful.
Sure is.
One more for him to manage.
Yeah. Thank you. Anybody else? Councilor Frida?
Yeah, just through the chair, are there any restrictions on that or any particular, I mean, his wife was so involved in music and the arts and
Right.
The piano, and I just wondered if there was a specific.
There's none that I've been made aware of, and I think he says that he's going to provide further details and instructions. That's I'm sure he's in his mind has all that laid out and how he'd like it to be. And when I will ask the treasurer as well, that when that is all established and those instructions are put in place, that we'll all get a copy of it too. So that
Certainly a great way to memorialize her, for sure.
I agree.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah.
I agree.
All right, all set? Okay, all those in favor of C-27, please recognize usual manner. And C-27 has been granted by a vote of 9-0. Moving on to C-28.
C-28, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that the tax classification hearing be held on November 24, 2025. We certainly did that this evening. As always, I want to thank our assessor department for coming down and presenting tonight. And it's going to be my recommendation that we grant C-28 and we use a factor of 1 and keep our tax classification the same that it's always been. And I ask that you check with members of my committee.
Councilor Cormier?
I agree.
And Councilor Tosse?
I agree.
You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to to maintain the factor of 1 tax rate pursuant to C-28. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we better do this in a roll call, starting with Councilor David Cormier.
Yay.
Councilor Pauline Cormier.
Yay.
Councilor Arndinger.
Yay.
Councilor Noseworthy.
Yay.
Councilor Tosse.
Yay.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr.
Yay.
Councilor Robbins.
Yay.
Councilor Frida.
Yay.
Shall be recorded as yay. C-28 has been granted with a factor of 1 maintained as our tax rate. Moving on to legal affairs and 3-26. Is the chairwoman ready to report?
I am. 3-26, Glenn Eaton, Executive Director, Montechusett Regional Planning Commission, request to amend the zoning ordinance to replace Article 15, accessory apartments, with a new Article 15 that complies with recently passed state law and make other changes to implement the new ordinance. So we had a public hearing early this evening that we kept open. We have not heard from the MRPC, and I believe that the planning board did pass some new changes, but we haven't seen the language yet.
Correct.
Okay, so through the chair to the clerk, if you could just ask them when they can send those changes down, ask them for a red line version so we can see, because we had already gone through this one other time.
Okay.
We thought we had all the changes kind of under control and understood, but if they can send us a new red line, that would be really helpful. So my recommendation would be to give this further time, and I'd ask that you check with my committee.
Sure. Councilor Tossi?
Yeah.
I agree.
And Councilor Cormier?
I agree.
All right, I'm going to suggest a continued public hearing for December 8th at 6:25. We have one at 6:20, but I think that's going away, which is
Yep, the next
24-26. So in any event, is that okay, Madam Chairwoman?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All those in favor of further time and continuing the public hearing on 3-26 to December 8th at 6:25, please recognize usual manner. All right, that may be done. Moving on to 9-26.
9-26, Susan Shalfo Zephyr, Brandon Robbins, Councilors at Large, Ward 1 Council Robert M. Tossi, and 10 registered voters request to amend the zoning ordinance pertaining to MU2 zoning. So we had continued the public hearing earlier this evening. We heard from a variety of people. And Ms. Wood, the planning director, who we've been trying to accommodate in terms of a date to come down and have a conversation with us, she's available on the 8th. So my recommendation would be further time, and we need to schedule the public hearing.
Okay, Councilor Tossi
I agree.
and Councilor Pauline Cormier.
I agree.
All right, so here's the unanimous recommendation for 9-26 for further time. Any further discussion?
Yep.
Councilor David Cormier.
Thank you. Just through the chair to the chairwoman of Legal Affairs, I guess I just want to do we have a list of questions for her when she comes? I'm just trying to, let me just say this much. We've heard a lot of testimony, and it's getting redundant. Like we've heard like the same things, and it's all part of the public hearing since day one. All those become part of the public hearing. What are we looking to hear or to gain by hearing from her?
I have a bunch of questions.
Okay.
We hear lots of testimony, we hear lots of characterizations of the process. I'd like to hear it from the horse's mouth. I mean, she was the person here who was questioned before the City Council in January. And I have several follow-up questions myself personally. I mean, I would imagine that other people might want some clarity. So I have questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Well,
Mr. President?
yes, Councilor Frida.
I guess I would just ask, do we know if she's going to come down? Because the mayor's letter indicated nobody was coming down.
No,
Is
she
included in
has
that?
since, through the chair to the clerk,
Yes.
Ms. Doran has confirmed
Yes.
it, yeah.
She has confirmed with me twice that she'll be here.
She has, yeah.
All right.
Yep.
The only thing I'd like to add is that the planning board has weighed in. I mean, I guess it was a split decision, but they have done their job, so. All right, anybody else? All right, all those in favor, I'm going to do this by roll call. Although, for further, the motion before us is for further time.
Right, and then we need to schedule a public hearing.
Right,
Yep.
so let's see if we can give it further time first.
Okay.
Councilor David Cormier.
Yay.
Councilor Pauline Cormier.
Yay?
Councilor Arndinger.
Yay.
Councilor Noseworthy.
Yay.
Councilor Tossi.
Yay.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr.
Yay.
Councilor Robbins.
Yay.
Councilor Frida.
Yay.
And I would record it as yay by a vote of 9-0. It's been further time. And I'm going to suggest a public hearing on 12/8 at 6:30 p.m.
Okay.
All right?
That works, yeah.
All those in favor of that public hearing date? Time? Okay, so that's established. All right. 15-26.
Right, okay. 15-26, Elizabeth Wood, Director of Planning and Development, on behalf of Planning Board. Request to amend the zoning ordinance pertaining to battery energy storage systems. So this, we had a public hearing continued to 12/8. However, we did hear from the planning board, and I'll read that letter into the record. This is dated November 19th, 2025, regarding city petition 15-26, Elizabeth Wood, on behalf of the planning board, request to amend the zoning ordinance pertaining to battery energy storage systems. Attention City Council. On 11/17/25, the planning board voted 7-0-1, abstention, I guess, to withdraw city council petition 1526. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. So having that recommendation from the planning department in hand, my recommendation would be to give 15-26 leave to withdraw. And I'd ask that you check with my committee.
Councilor Tosse?
I agree.
Councilor Pauline Cormier?
I agree.
You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Legal Affairs Committee to give 15-26 leave to withdraw without prejudice?
Without prejudice, sure.
Without prejudice?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, any discussion? Councilor Frida?
I'm actually very happy that they're doing this. I think they
Me too.
should.
Yep.
I think everybody.
That's unanimous.
This is definitely a huge problem in a lot of communities that are being faced with it.
Absolutely.
And, you know, hopefully if the state continues to mandate until they get to a certain portion, it'll be over that by the time we actually look at it. So I credit the planning board for doing this one.
Yep.
Because we really need to not have it.
Excellent. Anybody else? All right, all those in favor of the motion for leave to withdraw without prejudice, please recognize your usual manner. By a vote of 9-0, 15-26 has been given leave to withdraw. Moving on to 24-26.
24-26, Michael McEwen, on behalf of Kurt Owessian, plant manager of Highline Wallen, 163 Pioneer Drive, Leominster, Mass. Request a petition to obtain an above-ground fuel storage license for a 35,000-gallon above-ground storage tank to replace the 10,000-gallon tank currently at 163 Pioneer Drive and enlarge the containment area. We have a public hearing on this on December 8th at 6:20 p.m., so my recommendation will be further time, and I ask that you check with my committee.
Councilor Tosse?
I agree.
And Councilor Pauline Cormier?
I agree.
You've heard the unanimous recommendation of Legal Affairs to give 24-26 further time to December 8th at 6:20 p.m. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those recognized in the usual manner, and that may be done. Moving on to 25-26.
25-26, Attorney Jeffrey Avini, Dombrowski, Avini, and Bunnell, PC, request to amend Section 22-17 as to underlying zoning districts table of uses for the City of Leominster zoning ordinance as amended and under the business uses table of uses in the multi-use MU1 underlying zoning districts, and change the use so designated as self-storage from N, not allowed, to special permit planning board, SPPB, planning board special permit required. Pursuant to the City of Leominster zoning ordinance, self-storage is characterized as a business use, but is only allowed in the industrial zoning district. Introduction: 21 Jungle Road LLC is the owner of 21 Jungle Road, Leominster, Mass. As same is referred as map ID 301 parcel 1 herein after the premise. Jungle Road has entered into a purchase and sales agreement with Horizon Storage Group LLC, hereinafter called Horizon, for the purchase of the premise, contingent upon Horizon receiving all necessary approvals and permits for the construction of a self-storage facility on the premise. The premises is an ideal site for self-storage based on its proximity to Route 2 and Route 190. The premises is located in an area that is for the most part commercial or industrial in nature. There are no residential uses that abut or in the vicinity of the premises. As part of this petition, please see narrative by Horizon Storage Group LLC as to the proposed use of the premises as Exhibit A, concept site plan as Exhibit B, and example architectural renderings and as Exhibit C. So this, we have a public hearing scheduled for December 8th at 6:40 p.m. So my recommendation is further time.
Do we know if the planning board has established a public hearing on this yet?
I don't know.
I don't know, but I don't believe so.
Yeah, I'm wondering whether the 12/8 is not going to work. I would recommend we kick it over to the first meeting in January, because we get enough to
I'm
do.
happy to do that.
Okay. What's the date on, I got it right here. I buried it.
I think it's the 12th.
The 12th. Yep.
All right.
Is it the 12th, 1/12? Okay, so public hearing on 1/12/26.
Yep. So, Madam Chair,
Yes.
could we do we have nothing else scheduled for 1/12/26.
Okay.
Particular time you'd want to start that? Maybe 6:30?
6:30?
Okay. All right. Councilor Tossi?
I agree.
Councilor Pauline Cormier?
I agree.
All right, heard the unanimous recommendation of the Legal Affairs Committee to grant 25-26 further time and establish a public hearing on January 12th, 2026 at 6:30 PM. Any further discussion? Councilor Frida?
Through the chair to the clerk, could we try to find out if there's thought of a battery storage in here? Because when we talked about it the first time, there was a woman in the audience who came up, and I'm pretty sure it was 21 Jungle Road.
Correct.
I think you're right.
And she was talking about battery storage and wanted us to support the storage. And when I asked Attorney Avini, he said he wasn't sure what was going to be stored in there, so, which isn't a surprise. But I'd like to get an idea of.
Good to know.
Exactly.
All right, thank you, Councilor. Anything else? Nope. All right, all those in favor of further time in a 1/12/26 hearing, please recognize usual manner. All right, that may be done. Moving on to the Public Service Committee.
Petition 21-26, Massachusetts Electric Company doing business as National Grid of North Andover, Massachusetts, that it desires to construct a line of underground electric conduits, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures under and across the public ways or ways herein after named. The following are the streets and highways referred to: Plan 30579-379 Main Street, National Grid to install, beginning at a point approximately 31 feet south of the center line of the intersection of Green Street and Main Street. Remove existing tree guy and install 6-foot sidewalk guy on P15 Main Street. We had a public hearing earlier this evening on this matter. Representative from National Grid explained that it's basically to keep the pole standing. We received both referrals back from the Leominster DPW and Leominster Police Department. Neither had issues with regard to this petition. There was an issue regarding another petition that we passed at the beginning of the year, and it was indicated in an email from National Grid that work is being scheduled for December. So seeing all of that, I would suggest that we grant petition 21-26, and I'd ask that you check with the other members of the committee.
Councilor Frida?
I agree.
And Councilor Noseworthy?
I agree.
You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Public Service Committee to grant 21-26. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please recognize usual manner. 21-26 has been granted by a vote of 9-0. Moving on to 22-26.
22-26, Massachusetts Electric Company doing business as National Grid of North Andover, Massachusetts, that it desires to construct a line of underground electric conduits, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures under and across the public way or ways herein after named. The following are the streets and highways referred to: Plan 30579-379 Main Street, National Grid to install, beginning at a point approximately 30 feet south of the center line of the intersection of Morton Street and Main Street. Install 6 feet sidewalk guy on P26 Main Street. This is a very similar situation just shortly down the road. National Grid was here earlier during the public hearing, explained the petition. Same referrals with regard to the last petition, so I would suggest that we grant, and then I'd ask you to check with the other members of the committee.
Councilor Frida?
I support that.
And Councilor Noseworthy?
I agree.
You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Public Service Committee to grant 22-26. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please recognize usual manner. 22-26 has been granted. Moving on to 23-26.
23-26, Massachusetts Electric Company doing business as National Grid and Verizon New England, Inc. requests permission to locate poles, wires, and fixtures, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures along and across the following public way: Main Street, National Grid to install one jointly owned pole on Main Street, beginning at a point approximately 94 feet southeast of the center line of the intersection of Main Street and Priest Street. Remove existing tree guy, install stub pole 37-84, 70 feet southeast from P37, and sidewalk guy 4 feet off driveway. Wherefore, to praise that after due notice and hearing as provided by law, be granted a location for and permission to erect and maintain poles and wires together with such sustaining protecting fixtures as it may find necessary, said poles to be erected substantially in accordance with plan filed herewithin marked Main Street, Leominster, Massachusetts, number 305-79379. October 13th, 2025. Again, this is a very similar situation up the street. This one requires a new pole to help keep the pole across the street standing. So I, again, would suggest that we grant and that you check with the other members of the committee.
Councilor Frida?
I agree.
Councilor Noseworthy?
I agree.
You've heard a unanimous recommendation of the Public Service Committee to grant 23-26. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please recognize your usual manner. 23-26 has been granted by a vote of 8-0 with one abstention, Councilor David Cormier. Moving on to new business, and Councilor Cormier is going to tell us all about Colburn Court.
Oh, yes.
I predict.
Well,
It's a good prediction.
okay. Let's not make it too long, Dave. All right, so this is about the second reading of the ordinance, right?
Right.
First reading of the ordinance, no, because we didn't approve it
We
last time
approved it.
because of that change. So this is the first reading of an ordinance, 14-26, John Frayer, Captain, 116 Central Street, Leominster Police Department. Request repealing sections 13-62, parking meter zones 2 hours, then amending section 13-44, saying between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. by adding the following. And then there is a list of streets from Central Street to Church Street, and the Church Street, on the second page, it's 1, 2, 3, the fourth paragraph read or reads, Church Street, east side from West Street to the police station. Council Cormier raised a concern about the police station not being there in perpetuity and suggested that perhaps the police wanted to measure from the corner of Church and West, correct?
That's right. So if I may, I can offer an amendment.
Yeah.
So it should read Church Street, east side from West Street to Colburn, Colburn Court.
Is it COL? There's an L in there?
It is,
Okay,
yep.
that was confusing too.
Yep,
Okay.
it's-
Colburn Court?
That's right.
Okay.
Colburn Court, just so anybody wants to know, is the one-way between the old police station and the fire station.
Oh, it's an alley.
It's,
basically.
right, but it does legally have a street name.
Good.
There is a legal petition in our ordinance book that designates it a one-way. And I also learned that Allen's Department Store uses that, has a Colburn Court address for their building there.
That's crazy.
So that is the official name of that street. So that is the amendment.
I'll second his motion.
Good.
Excellent. Any discussion?
No.
All those in favor? So amended.
Okay, good. So, shall I continue with the
Yes.
first reading of the ordinance? Okay, so, first reading of the ordinance, which was formerly petition 14-26. Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Leominster as follows, amending Chapter 13 of the revised ordinances entitled Motor Vehicles and Traffic. Chapter 13, Section 13-62 of the revised ordinances entitled Parking Meter Zones 2 Hours is hereby amended by deleting such section in its entirety. Chapter 13 is further amended at Section 13-44, as saying between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. by inserting the following text. And then there is a list of streets, Central Street, West Side, Central Street, West Side, Central Street, East Side, Church Street, East Side from West Street to Colburn Court, as we just amended. Depot Square, West Side, Main Street, East and West, Main Street, East Side, Main Street, West Side, Mechanic Street, North Side, Mechanic Street, South Side, Merriam Avenue, North, Merriam Avenue, South, Park Street, West Side, Park Street, East Side, Pearl Street, North Side, Pearl Street, South Side, Pleasant Street, North Side, West 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 Street, South Side, West Street, South Side, and West Street, South Side. So all of this was put forward by Captain Frayer of the Leominster Police Department. So my recommendation is that we adopt the first reading of the ordinance. And I ask that you check with my committee.
Very well. Councilor Tossi?
I agree.
And Councilor Pauline Cormier?
I agree.
You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Legal Affairs Committee to grant the first reading of an ordinance formally,
14-26.
thank you. Any further discussion? This will be by roll call. Counselor David Cormier?
Yay.
Counselor Pauline Cormier?
Yay.
Counselor Arndinger?
Yay.
Counselor Noseworthy?
Yay.
Counselor Tosse?
Yay.
Counselor Shalfo Zephyr?
Yay.
Counselor Robbins?
Yay.
Counselor Frida?
Yay.
I shall be recorded as yay. First reading is adopted by a vote of 9-0. Moving on to 17-25.
Yep, the 17-25, Susan Shalfo Zephyr, Councilor at Large, requests place no parking signs across the street from 59 to 63 Manchester Street apartment building. We ran into a little problem with this one last time as well. And I had not seen we have a letter dated November 7th to Leominster City Council, care of the clerk, regarding amending Chapter 13 of the revised ordinances entitled motor vehicles, oh my God. Wow. Entitled Motor Vehicles and Traffic. Members of the City Council, regarding the above referenced ordinance submitted to my office for signatures, please note I will not sign the same unless all abutting residents on Manchester Street have been notified of this no parking amendment. Therefore, please advise as to whether or not the abutters have been notified. Thank you for your attention. Well, number one, we don't have an ordinance to notify abutters whenever we do no parking signs or stop signs or things of that nature. So this was requested to me by a constituent who lives in that neighborhood, drives up and down Manchester Street, is an elderly gentleman and really concerned about that. Captain Frere went to the location and took a good look at it and said, yeah, that's a problem, because people coming in the other direction when people are parked on one side, they're coming up over a hill and they're blind, you can't really see. So my recommendation is still to adopt the first reading. We don't have any mechanism in place to notify abutters, so I think that's kind of a moot point. So my recommendation is to adopt the first reading, and I would ask that you check with my committee.
And Counselor Tosse?
I agree.
Counselor Pauline Cormier?
I agree.
All right, you hear the unanimous recommendation to grant the first reading of 1725. Is there any additional discussion? All right, well, I'm the Ward 4 counselor. The mayor's indicating pretty plainly that he's going to veto it. So, because people don't know about it, I don't know very much about it as the Ward 4 counselor. I still don't know who the person is that registered the concern. So, for my position is I can't support this. So, in any event, that's my view. That's my view. Anybody else? Councilor David Cormier?
Well, kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. I want to support the Ward councilor, but I also understand there's an issue, and the mayor's going to veto it. I think he already made that clear. So, I mean, either we clear all this up, or I'm going to vote against it as well.
I'm willing to give it further time if that's a middle approach. That works, but I know there's nothing that requires that be done, but it becomes kind of futile if he's going to just veto it. So.
Go ahead.
I was just going to suggest, I'll motion for further time, so you and the at-large council can talk to each other.
That's fine. I'm fine with that.
All right.
Further time, okay.
All right, we have a second for your motion? Okay, Pauline, all right, any discussion on the motion for further time? All right, all those in favor of further time? All right, so 17-25 is going to be further time. All right, moving on to old business and the second reading of an ordinance.
Second reading of an ordinance, 16-26, Mark C. Bedanza, Ward 4 Councilor, request to amend Section 13-77, stop signs at the Leominster Municipal Code by adding a stop sign for eastbound traffic at Givery Circle at the intersection of Gordon Street. So we did adopt the first reading, so this is now the second reading of an ordinance. Be it ordained that the City Council of the City of Leominster as follows amend Chapter 13 of the revised ordinances entitled Motor Vehicles and Traffic. Chapter 13 is amended in Section 13-77 stop signs by inserting the following. Givery Circle against eastbound traffic at the intersection of Gordon Street, or intersection with Gordon Street. So my recommendation would be to adopt the second reading.
Thank you. Councilor Tosse?
I agree.
Councilor Pauline Cormier?
I agree.
Any discussion? This will be by roll call. Councilor David Cormier?
Yay.
Councilor Pauline Cormier?
Yay.
Councilor Arndinger?
Yay.
Councilor Noseworthy?
Yay.
Councilor Tosse?
Yay.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr?
Yay.
Councilor Robbins?
Yay.
Councilor Frida?
Yay.
I'll be recorded as yay by a vote of 9-0. The second reading is adopted.
Yeah, what, may,
Sure.
May I? So going back to 1725, the person, I thought I had told you, and I apologize if I did not, is Joseph Fermani.
Just the last name I had.
Oh, Mr. Fermani, I call him Mr. Fermani.
Okay.
He sounds like an elderly gentleman. He lives in that neighborhood. He goes back and forth on Manchester Street all the time, and it really is a concern of his.
Okay.
So he's the person that's
We
on.
can chat.
Good.
All right. Anything on the community calendar, Council Robbins?
I just have one thing. The Breakfast for the Bands was this weekend. It was outstanding. I just also wanted to shout out, it's great to see that the Leominster High School Band has really grown back to the size it was when I was in high school, which I think was when it was at a record number. And it was announced at the Breakfast for the Bands, they had marched in the Plymouth Thanksgiving Day Parade, and they were awarded as one of the top 3 bands in the parade. So that's a pretty cool accolade for our band. So congratulations to them.
That was fun.
Councilor Frida?
I'm just going to add to that, and, you know, with a touch, when they played next to the last medley, or whatever they were doing, they invited all the alumni of the band.
Oh,
My daughter was a drum major in the late 80s. Very reluctantly went up to the, only because her neighbor and the kid she grew up with, Ben Parker, who was
Oh, yeah, he
doing
was the MC.
So he was in the band at the same time, so the two of them went up together, and they all did a program towards the end, just,
That's great.
you know, so it was nice to show the alumni support for the band now.
Yeah, absolutely. Councilor Cormier?
Thank you. I just wanted to mention something, and I would have had it put on the agenda, but the letter was actually dated today that I saw floating around Facebook from the superintendent of schools, that there could potentially be a strike. The bus company, First Student, could potentially be on strike starting December 1st. So they're asking families to start making alternative plans. If their child or children take the bus, that there could be a strike. I know it will affect Leominster, and I think Fitchburg uses First Student as well. So, you know, it's just something that people should be mindful of, you know, as the coming week approaches. Also, too, I just got this today, spend the holidays in Leominster. I'm not going to read all of it, but there's a lot of good, there's a lot of good,
Thank God.
there's a lot of good stuff going on in the city. So I'm sure you can get these calendars here at City Hall, and you know, Shoalin Farms is having a light show, and the CPAC Breakfast with Santa is coming up, and return of Poinsettia the dinosaur on Friday, December 5th. There's all kinds of good stuff going on in the city, and if anybody's interested in staying local, and then maybe grabbing a nice dinner downtown, there'll be plenty of stuff going on, so they should consult that flyer that came out.
Yes, Councilor Robbins?
Through the chair to the finance chair on the point he just raised, this may be a silly question, but seeing there is a strike, can we get some clarification on like savings in regards to transportation? And if there are savings, are there any plans to support families who may otherwise really not be able to get their kids to school?
Yeah.
I am.
Through the chair, it's funny you mentioned that, because that was my first thought was, if we, let's say, God forbid, we have there is a strike and it's, you know, goes for 3 weeks or 4 weeks, do we get money back from that? But there's also a busing contract, so I'd have to ask Greg Chapdelaine. I'm sure he knows that busing contract inside and out, and can tell us
If you could bring some of that information.
how we would fare financially if there is a strike. And I'll see if I can get some of that.
Yeah, I think even if this
information.
doesn't happen, it would just be nice to know in the future as well.
busing contract,
For the
absolutely.
Force majeure clause. Yes, Councilor Frida?
I had something else, but I wanted to add to that. A number of years ago, talking about the buses, Councilor Rosa was on this mission to have the buses housed or parked and housed in Leominster, that service Leominster, because all that excise tax money would come to the city. Maybe that's not a bad idea to bring to the school department when next time they negotiate. They're all parked in Fitchburg. Fitchburg gets all that revenue, and we're paying, you know, for the servicing, for the transportation. So, I mean, it was a really good point. It was a lot of money at the time. So
I remember that.
yeah, that was, a big discussion, but it worked. And the other thing I just wanted to add, it's not, it's actually news. The Mount Wachusett Community College was just awarded gold medal status for their work with veterans. And they were the #1 community college in the state, named by U.S. Veteran Magazine. And they're third with all the college total, but they're the only community college that was noticed. So as the chair of the Board of Trustees, I'm really very proud of what they do for veterans. I mean, and to have a campus in Leominster also makes it extra special, so.
Councilor Shalfo-Zephyr?
Yep. Just following up on the Mount Wachusett Community College thing, it's hard to believe, but lots of college students go hungry. And I know that Mount Wachusett has got 3, on all of their campuses, I think they have food pantries that serve their students, and it's huge. And there's a big, big need this holiday season. So for, folks out in the audience, I mean, we have local food pantries, we have Ginny's obviously, and other ones locally, but I just can't bear the thought of kids trying to go to school and they're hungry, as young adults or teenagers, whatever. So if anybody, has a little bit of extra money or wants to drop some peanut butter off, there is a campus here in Leominster, and every donation is greatly appreciated.
Good. Councilor Noseworthy?
Thank you. So on Saturday, I helped volunteer at the Jeffrey P. Stevens Low-Cost Leominster Pet Vaccine Clinic. So I volunteered for half the time, so I think at about halfway through they had serviced 30 to 40 animals. People from all over central Massachusetts, and even people came up from the Cape. So kind of on the same line as everybody else is talking about, it's so important when people are struggling that they keep their pets safe and healthy too, because they are family members. And it was great to be part of that. I think in Fitchburg they do it a couple times a year, but they had some extra funds, and they decided to bring it into Leominster, so it was a really great event.
Wonderful.
Anything else? Councilor Arndinger?
Thank you very much. Somewhat in line with Councilor Zephyr's, the Leominster Veteran Center has started a food pantry, and it's well-stocked. It's been getting a lot of donation, but it's open to any veteran that comes up there, no questions asked. And the Rotary Club is holding a function on December 18th at 6 p.m. at Manusnock. The purpose of that is to raise gather toys for local kids and to help the food bank. The toys are going to be distributed to Jenny's and to the Salvation Army, so it's going to be a good event. The mission, a toy. That's it. Bring a toy, but as one of the supporters says, well, you don't have to bring just one. You can always bring enough that you have to ring the doorbell with your elbow, okay? So please join us on the 18th at 6 p.m. I know that the Tri-City Council dinner is scheduled at the same time.
No, maybe not.
Maybe
We're working
not.
on it. Change it. We may be, stay tuned.
Okay.
Maybe
But anyway, it's going to be a
maybe-
great event, and like I said, everything is being paid for by the club as far as food and stuff like that go. Ray Richard is going to be an MC there, so it should be a good event, and hopefully we'll get a lot of toys and a lot of food.
Don't forget Catholic Charities in that lineup too.
The Catholic
There's
Charities, we
great
can
need
add.
over there as well.
Okay, all right, thank you. We'll certainly
Okay.
take care of that.
Everybody all set with the
It's at 6,
PSAs?
Huh?
At 6 p.m.?
6 p.m., December 18th, at Manusnock.
Councilor
To
Robbins?
adjourn.
Very good, second, all in favor? All right, we're adjourned, thank you.
The Leominster City Council meeting is funded in part by DeCarolis Insurance Agency at www.decarolisinsuranceagency.com and by Avidia Bank at www.avidiabank.com.